Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel or the podcast if you're listening. Today I'm going to describe how you can go from running 5 kilometers to 21.1 kilometers, which is a half marathon inside the next 90 days. This is the exact strategy that I personally used for my first half marathon of the year just over 2 weeks ago in 1 hour 35 minutes at an average of a 4:30 kilometer pace. Also as well at the end of the video I'll describe exactly how you can lay out a suggested week so you balance the strength and the cardio. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Adrian McDonnell. I'm a full-time online health and fitness coach, formerly a primary school teacher. We've coached over 800 clients a day to Mac Lifestyle Fitness, and we help busy working professionals look, feel and perform their utmost best. So in the episode I'm going to describe the 4 types of running that you need to do, how to balance cardio and strength training, my personal nutrition strategy that I used, how to actually aid your recovery and not overtrain, some mindset tips and tricks that I personally use, along at the end of how to actually plan out your week and some common mistakes to avoid. So getting straight into it, first of all with the running. So personally 4 types of runs that I did was the long run, the tempo run, the speed run and the recovery one, which I'll explain. So the long run, this is, as the name suggests, this is going to be your longer run where it's going to build your aerobic base. Okay, this is where you essentially build up your mileage and you gradually increase it over time. A common mistake that a lot of people make is they just go from like 5k to a 15k inside a week or two, and what this will often cause is injury, and you don't want injuries to occur whereby your ligaments, your joints are not able to tolerate all that load. So with the long run, what I'd recommend is do not increase your volume by any more than 10% per week. So personally speaking, I was able to run a 10k anyways, no issues at all, maybe 45, 46 minutes before I started. But what I did was I did 10k until my body was used to that. Then I went from 10k to 12, 12 to 14, 14 to 16, 16 to 18, and then 18 up to 21. Had I just gone from 10k straight to 21.1, okay, I probably would have been way too challenged in my body. So when you were doing the long runs, gradually increase your volume by no more than 10% per week, and the long run is essentially where you're going to really build your aerobic base, okay? That's where you're building the foundation and then you're going to build upon it from there. The second type of run is a tempo run. So tempo run, as the name suggests, is where you run at different tempos or you run at different speeds. So for example, a 10 kilometer tempo run, this could look something like, or let's just say actually even scale it back, a 6 kilometer tempo run could be that you do a 2 kilometer warm up, 1 kilometer at race pace, 1 kilometer faster than race pace, and then 2 kilometer cool down. You're essentially run at different pace or different speeds for a prolonged period of time. Okay, I found this very, very beneficial for increasing my aerobic base and improving my fitness. The third type of run is a speed run. So the speed run is where you're actually running faster than you're used to, as the name suggests. So an example that I was using in my own personal training was 8 by 500 meter repeats with a 90 to 120 second rest. So you run 500 meters as fast as possible, you rest for 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and you repeat that for 8 sets. Also then towards the end, what I did was 4 by 1 kilometer repeats at a 4-minute kilometer pace, so roughly 15 kilometers an hour. Rest for 2 minutes and do that for 4 total sets. So the benefit of the speed work is you're training your heart to be elevated and run at a faster pace. And your heart is also like a muscle, and your VO2 max, your max heart rate. So doing the speed run, allowing some tempo work there, that will really train your heart to get used to essentially just training at a higher threshold. Then the final run is the recovery run. So the recovery run, as the name suggests, is where it's your easy run, it's below your race pace, and you just want to do it to essentially get rid of some of the lactic acid in the legs to build up the mileage and just to increase your overall fitness levels. So as I said, with the long run, do not increase your volume by any more than 10% per week. With the tempo run, so what I personally would have started out doing was maybe 8 kilometers, and I would have done like 8 kilometers, so 2 kilometers at an easy pace, 2 kilometers at a moderate pace, 1 kilometer at a fast pace, go back down for 2 kilometers at a moderate pace, and then 1 kilometer at a fast pace, and maybe a cool down there as well. Okay, so you're adjusting the tempos. The speed run then, so as I said, 4 by 1 kilometer repeats was what I used, or 8 by 500 meter repeats. Again, it works out at 4 kilometers in total, but you're running fast, you're running really, really hard. Now with the speed run, my God, like one of the sessions that I was doing, it was with a tempo run. One of the sessions that I was doing, I remember I was looking at the heart rate on my phone, my heart rate monitor. So your max heart rate is the calculation is 210 minus your age. So I'm 30 years young as of now, so my technical max heart rate is 180 beats per minute. I was looking at my Garmin watch on my phone doing one of the tempo runs. It was a 10 kilometer tempo run, and it was around the last 2 kilometers. And I was really pushing it, so this is my like fast kilometer before I would say cool down or warm down. And my heart rate for probably 15 minutes was at like 170 to 178. So like it was really in the red zone. So that's where I was essentially, that's almost like a VO2 max test it was for me, and I was really pushing that. So I essentially surpassed my lactate threshold there because I wanted to really maximize my fitness. Now you would not do that type of training all the time in your tempo, but that's something that I personally did just to really test where my fitness levels are at. All right, so you need to incorporate these kind of runs, the long run, the tempo, the speed run, the recovery run, and essentially that's going to help build your aerobic pace. So after the running then, so we take care of the cardio, you need to obviously prioritize your strength as well. And what I would say with the strength is, first of all, I should have said this at the start of the video, that you need to clarify what your goals are. So if your goal is that you want to maximize your strength and just keep the running ticking over, well then maybe you don't need to do all these kind of run-ins, or at least your volume will not be as high. But if your goal is you want to maximize your performance in the running, well then sometimes you can't just always push the run and push the strength. It's quite difficult to do both at the same time. So personally what I did was I was comfortable enough that I wanted to push my upper body strength and then keep my lower body strength one day kind of at maintenance and one day where I was pushing it. So I accepted the fact that I probably was not going to grow as much muscle as humanly possible in my legs, but that was a trade-off that I was willing to make. So with my strength training, I essentially broke it down into hybrid days, upper days and leg days. So hybrid days are days where you do a combination of both. You do legs or you do weights. You do essentially weights and cardio in the one day. Upper days where I just focus solely on upper body days, they act more as recovery days. And then leg days is where I was doing weight training for my legs. So what I would recommend here is that with your strength training, first of all, it's so important that if you're a runner that you do strength training. It's like if you just do running, okay, running is not enough if you want to improve your running and your fitness, because running is just obviously going to improve your cardiovascular fitness, but if you want to go long, you need to be strong, and that's why strength training is super important for opening up your hips, your mobility, your ankles, everywhere, your joints, reducing risk of injury. So personally what I did was, my strategy was, I did 2 leg sessions a week. One leg session was more hypertrophy based, where I was like trying to push some PRs and really training my legs hard. The other day was like just maybe more movement based and speed based, and it was much less volume because I wasn't able to do 2 hard leg sessions a week along with 3 to 4 runs on top of that. It was just way too much volume for my body. So my personal split for the week was, I'll actually do it from back to front. So Sunday was my long run. Okay, so Sunday was my long run, which meant Monday then my body was quite tired, my body was quite sore. I just focused on upper body strength for the Monday to help me recover. Tuesday was my first leg session of the week, and that leg session, so I did a leg session which was followed then by my speed work as well, all in the one session. Yes, you can separate your strength and your cardio out in 2 sessions. Just honestly, running the business and time management wise, I did have that luxury, but I didn't choose to opt for it. I just rather get all my training done in one block. So I did my leg session on a Tuesday along with my running afterwards. For the leg work that I found particularly work well for me, you need to do a combination of unilateral and bilateral work. So unilateral is single leg work. You run on one leg, so you need to be able to actually train one leg at a time. So for example, what I sometimes find is my right leg is not as strong as my left, because I played GA for over 20 years and I was right footed. So every time I was kicking off my right, what was my left foot doing? It was balancing. Okay, so my left just naturally is a bit stronger than my right. So you need to train your weaknesses essentially. That's why single leg work, single joint work is very effective. I was also doing some power work, so we'll say heavy barbell squats, where we'll say in the 3 to 5, 3 to 6 rep range, focusing on strength, focusing on speed. I was also doing some pump work, we'll say as well, whether it's like hamstring curls to strengthen my hamstrings, glute bridges, or hip thrusts to really build my glutes. But I made sure I was doing a combination of not just random exercises, a combination of bilateral, unilateral work and multi-movement work as well, along with some jumps too. Okay, so then Wednesday what I did was, so Tuesday was leg day, so Wednesday I just did an upper body push focus session. Again, very little cardio here, Barry, 2.5 kilometer warm up. Thursday was my tempo day, and I did tempo and a pull session. So I essentially did up to a 10 kilometer tempo run along with a 50 minutes weight session. That was a quite challenging session, I do know, but it was very beneficial for building up my endurance particularly, and then just kind of maintaining my strength in my pull session. So my pull session on Monday, which is my upper body pull, that was where I focused predominantly on like hitting PRs and focused on strength, whereas the second session was lighter loads and not as intense. Friday I kind of did a flexi balance between my second leg session, which was much softer, or I might have done some legs and then a small bit of running afterwards. But the second leg session of the week for me, I did not do as much volume and I did not train as much intensity because, as I said, it's very, very difficult. I just did a 10K the day before to really max out and push my legs. Saturday then I did a lighter upper body session, and this was just no cardio at all because Sunday then was a long run for me. Okay, that was a strategy that I used, but again, I'll show you at the end how you could use something similar, maybe with just a bit less volume. All right, so your hybrid days, so that'll be the days you do both. Your upper days where you're just focusing on upper body, and your leg days where you're focusing on legs. The benefit of doing the upper body days is it just gives your legs a chance to recover. And again, when you're running, like my goal is I want to run, but I don't want to look like a runner respectfully. And a lot of runners, they have too much body fat. They've some belly fat, they're quite skinny, a lot of them are, and they don't have a whole lot of muscle mass. So for me, I want to maintain as much muscle, if not build muscle, and certainly maintain my strength and maintain my aesthetic. So that was a layout that I use personally for my strength training. Okay, so after my training then, so running and strength, next thing I'm going to speak about is nutrition. So I'm going to break down nutrition into two areas. So Peri workout, essentially means around your workout windows. That's before, during, and after your workout. And then anytime meal. So Peri workout, when you think of it, you need to give the body what it wants when it needs it. All right, so give the body what it wants when it needs it. So when you're doing running, when you're doing hard strength training, your body's preferred form of fuel is glycogen, which is stored carbohydrates. So my personal strategy was, one of the mistakes I made in the past was just training fasted. And I heard Nick Bear, who's a great hybrid athlete, say that once you go fed, you will never want to go back fasted. And for me, I don't do any runs anymore. I don't even lift anymore fasted. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just personally speaking, what I found is my strength is generally better when I have a small meal beforehand. So before your workout, after your workout, the two main macronutrients you need to consume, or at least I consume, are protein and carbohydrates. So protein is first of all going to help build and preserve muscle mass, particularly important in the post-workout window to make sure you recover properly, because when you think about it, when you're running, when you're lifting weights, you're tearing down muscle fibers, okay? So those need to be repaired and replenished and to grow in order to build and to get stronger. So that's where protein will come in. Protein will essentially help you preserve and retain and then recover from your training, so you can build some muscle and you can actually go again stronger the next day. Carbohydrates then are super, super important because carbohydrates will fuel your performance, okay? Again, I wanted to perform my utmost best, so I need to give the body what it needs when it needs it. So my pre-workout meal was cream of rice, which is essentially just rice flour blended up, along with 1 scoop of protein and half a banana. Now, the reason I had cream of rice over something like oats is because oats is very, very good. Oats is very, very filling, but oats does contain a lot of fiber, and fiber takes longer for your body to digest. So I spoke of this before in another video, that in your pre and post workout meal, but especially your pre-workout meal, you want to limit fiber, you want to limit fats. Foods that are high in fiber and foods that are high in fats. So foods that are high in fiber would be things like vegetables in particular, like broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, these kind of ones. And then foods that are high in fats would be things like nuts, avocados, even like meats like steak and so on, because fats take longer for your body to digest. And the last thing you want to be doing when you're going on a run or you're doing a lift is actually digesting your food. So around your workout, protein and carbohydrates are going to be your two best friends there. So that was my pre-workout meal: cream of rice, half a banana, 1 scoop of whey protein, fast digesting protein, fast digesting carbohydrate, and a simple sugar there. Post-workout then, that's where I had my protein oats and also some eggs as well. So my oats, no protein oats, just oats, and then some eggs with some fruit. So oats and fruit, that can be carbohydrates to replenish my recovery, and then the fruit obviously is another form of carbohydrate, while the eggs then and the egg whites, that was essentially my form of protein, and it's helping me replenish and recover, okay? Now, other things to be mindful of when it comes to your nutrition are so important is your electrolytes and your hydration. So before my runs, before my lift, I always will drink at least 1.5 litres of water inside the first hour of the day, okay? Because your body needs water. First thing I train first thing in the morning, but essentially, obviously you need to be well hydrated. And studies do show that even that a reduction in hydration by 3% can decrease your performance by up to 25%. So the best way to test if you're hydrated or not is just look at your urine colour. Ideally, you want your urine colour to be a pale yellow or even a clear colour, and the darker your urine is generally indicates the more dehydrated you are. All right. Other things in. So I don't take any like inter-workout fuel for my lifting workouts. But for the runs, what I did experiment with was using inter-workout gels. So why are inter-workout gels important, or why can they be beneficial? Because your body can process at least 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour, which is roughly 1 gram of carbohydrate per hour. Now the energy gels that you typically get, depending on the size, they've anywhere from 20 to 60 grams of carbohydrates in them. So personally speaking, the ones that I got, they had 22 grams of carbs, which means that going off that formula, I could roughly take in, if I'm really pushing my performance, up to 3 energy gels per hour and still like stay within a tolerance level where I was able to digest it and I was able to use those carbohydrates for performance. So for my half marathon, a mistake I made was I only used 2 energy gels simply because I only brought 2 energy gels with them. But for this coming marathon the weekend, my strategy is going to be that I'm going to have one every 20 minutes essentially. So one every 20 minutes, which will be roughly 5 over the course of the race. Now I'm also in my energy gels, one of them it's got a double espresso, which is 150 milligrams of caffeine. Now caffeine is really, really good for your performance because caffeine essentially delays the onset of fatigue. Fatigue or tiredness, this resides in the brain. So your brain is going to give way before your body will, which I'll speak about on the mindset side. But you can prolong that onset of fatigue by increasing your caffeine intake. So that's why for me, pre-workout I'd have a double espresso and I would drink that. And then my inter-workout gel, this contained carbohydrates and also some caffeine too, which gives me the best of both worlds. Okay, so that was my pre-workout nutrition strategy essentially. So protein and carbohydrates being the main two, making sure you're well hydrated, reducing fiber, reducing your fats, and they be the most important things. Now, post-workout then your meal. So the post-workout window, people say like, slamming protein shakes or getting food into you as fast as possible. So the anabolic window is essentially a term used by meatheads to describe when you finish a hard weight session, that the most optimal time to build muscle is like basically in the anabolic window, which is where after your workout you want to get in food as quickly as possible. However, the anabolic window, essentially people thought you had to slam a protein shake after you finish your workout or else you lose your gains. But really the research shows anywhere inside the first 2 hours finishing your workout, the sooner definitely the better, that will be most optimal. So what I would just say is make sure you get your post-workout meal inside 2 hours, and ideally that's going to be carbohydrates and protein, okay? Now, then so the anytime meal then is part 2 nutrition. So anytime meal is a meal outside of my workout window. So anywhere 3 hours or more outside of it. So for me, I train first thing in the morning. So my meals around my workout were carbohydrate and protein based. Then my meals for the rest of the day, they contained what I didn't have in my pre-workout and post-workout meal, which was higher fiber, so more vegetables, and also more fats as well, more healthy fats. So this be things like, let's just say I would have had salmon with some vegetables, and I might have had some chia seeds with some Brazil nuts, with some almonds, in some Greek yogurt, okay? Just kind of meals like this, some avocado thrown in there as well. Essentially foods that I would not have in my pre or post workout meal because they can slow down digestion or slow down recovery, but meals that I'd have in any other time of the day. And I think that's a very, very nice way for anyone listening or watching is just to break down your meals into 2 main strategies: peri-workout and any other time. And generally for the any other time meal, carbohydrates are not essential. So there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate, meaning you technically can survive without eating carbohydrates. So carbohydrates give your body energy, so that's why they're most important to have around your workout. But then for the rest of the day, what I personally found was I scaled back my carb intake. Still would have had a small bit of like sweet potato and potatoes here and there, but I really focused on hitting my protein, hitting my fiber, and getting some healthy fats in. So examples of anytime meals for me was chicken with some vegetables and a small serving of white potato, sea bass with some vegetables, with some avocado, salmon with some kiwi before bed, with some sweet potato there, small serving of sweet potato, and vegetable soup. Okay, but my carb sources, my sweet potato, my white potato, even your rices, whatever you like, they were somewhat limited in my any other time meals, and then my protein stayed consistent, and then my fiber and my fats increased from my anytime meals. Okay, so after nutrition we have recovery. So recovery is very, very important because personally speaking, I think for the most of the people watching this video, it's very, very difficult for you to overtrain, but quite easy for you to under recover. And recovery will come from, first of all, nutrition. So nutrition we've already spoke about there, super, super important. But also then there's 2 main types of recovery: active recovery and passive recovery. So a mistake a lot of people make is you do your long run on a Sunday, and then you're a couch potato on Monday, you increase your activity slightly on Tuesday, you're back to it Wednesday. Okay, one of the worst things you can do after would say even the day after a session, just sit on the couch all day and do absolutely nothing. You want blood flow again in the legs. So active recovery and tonight, just going for a walk even, okay? So maybe a 30-minute walk on one of your days, to doing things like foam rolling. So personally what I used was, I did a lot of mobility work, so I used a Schlitter to roll out my glutes. I would also roll out, would say, my hamstrings as well. They're quite delicate. And just make sure that I did that every single day along with some hip flexor work. Essentially, active recovery helped me recover faster, okay? And then on my, would say, my non-upper body or my non-leg days, so the days I wasn't running or the days I wasn't lifting weights for my legs, that's when I did some upper body work. So again, I got some blood flow, and just because my legs were tired doesn't mean I couldn't train. I just had to moderate my intensity and volume there. So I would highly recommend you do some form of active recovery, whether that is foam rolling, whether that is ice baths, whether that is sauna, steam room, all of these different modalities. Super, super important. Then passive recovery is just where you're it's more lighter recovery. So look, the most beneficial form is just sleeping. So sleeping and obviously nutrition will be the big two there. So sleeping, so personally I sleep about 7 hours or so a night. I find that's my sweet spot, at least 7 hours. And like sleep is so, so important, because you can do all the ice pack, you can take all the supplements you want, but if your sleep is not on point, you're going to be very, very under recovered and not going to be performing to your utmost best. So they're the two main forms of recovery. So active and passive. Again, active, I always keep the legs ticking over. At least 10k steps a day is my KPI. I'll do daily mobility for about 10 minutes every morning. And then if you want to incorporate things like ice baths, saunas, even just contrast therapy, all of these things can certainly help. While your passive recovery, just taking care of your nutrition and also your sleep, they'd be the big two, along with stress management. Okay, so then next up I want to speak about is mindset. So mindset is going to be, look, directly related to your performance, because I would say for endurance, it's probably 70 or 80% mindset and 20% actually mechanics, because your body is capable of doing much, much more, but it's whether your mind wants to take it there or not. So personally speaking, for me, what worked well was, first of all, listening to audiobooks or podcasts in my run. I have a tradition at the moment that one of my favorite entrepreneurs and business owners, his name is Ed Milet. I either listen to his audiobook, The Power of One More, or listen to his podcast, and I am in the zone. Like it's incredible. He had David Goggins on his show, and he did like a mashup on his most recent show that he published, and it was just Goggins saying that how he did this 100-mile race and how he was completely dead at mile 70, but then something happened where his mind, his body, his soul, his spirit, they all like just essentially came together in one, and he banged out the last 30 miles. And like when you're running and when you hear that in your ears, for me personally, it just gives me an extra 5 or 10%. Then when it comes to visualization, so look, a lot of people, a mistake I made in the past was like visualizing the inline, or like how good it's going to feel to get to the finish line and run my half marathon. But really what I started visualizing was how painful it's going to be. It's like you have to prepare yourself that you're going to suffer. And you need to look, it's just inevitable that if you're running a half marathon or you're pushing a pace, like I wasn't jogging this now, I'm pushing for a time, okay? I'm not just strolling, so I'm going at a decent enough pace here. So pain is going to be inevitable. Your legs are going to get heavy. And it's what happens when your legs get heavy. What's your self-talk? What's your internal dialogue? So for me, just visualizing the pain, how I'm going to be feeling at different parts of the race. So I'm probably going to feel quite fresh for the first 4 or 5k, okay? Usually what I find is fatigue started to kick in from 8k to 12k, and then I get a bit of a second wind almost from 12 onwards, and I could push it on. But again, that's what I noticed. So it's like, okay, if I feel this way at 8k or at whatever k it is, what's my self-talk going to be? Is it that I'm just going to slow down and going to quit, or am I going to push through it that I've already prepared for it? And mentally, when you prepare for the challenges, when that actual challenge arises in real time, it's way, way easier for your body and your mind just to adjust to it. Okay, so other things that worked well for me was, look, I'm running 21.1 kilometers, but really I'm just running 4 or 5 kilometer races with the 1.1 finish at the end. Okay, so it's kind of like 21 kilometers, God, where do I even start? But then it's like, look, I'm just doing 5k. So when I was running, I was like, phase 1, done. Phase 2, done. Phase 3, done. Last set, best set, let's go. And like, just your self-talk is so, so important. And yeah, that's what really worked well for me. So listen to good audiobooks or podcasts. I know some people like music. Sometimes I like to listen to music as well, but I find with running, I'm a much, much better headspace when I just listen to podcasts, and actually it gives me a chance to think and just to reflect almost. Like put your mind to solitude. And then from a visualization standpoint, meditate, visualize, whatever you want to call it, but just visualize it, not just the finish line, but visualize it being hard. And that's okay, because that's part of the process. And then finally then, so planning and also mistakes to avoid. So a big mistake that I made at the start was not really having a set running plan in stone. So I started running like based on intuition. Will I run a 5K this morning? Will I leave it off? But like, you can't just do everything based on your emotion, because respectfully, the part of your mind, the weaker part of your mind, the bitch part of your mind, essentially, that's just going to tell you you don't want to do it, and you're just going to lie in, sleep in, do whatever you like. So for me, it's like, I need to have a plan in place. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to structure out your week, which I'll show you in a moment. Okay, so have a clear structure for what days you're lifting, what you're doing in each day. And the worst thing that you could do, that I personally did, especially with the run, was like just winging it. So don't go to the gym without a plan. That's something I never do, to be fair. But with the running, it was like, will I run a 5K, will I run an 8K, will I do tempo, will I do long run today? I didn't really have a plan, and that's why when I put together the plan, this was literally my 90-day blueprint. Next thing is just mistakes to avoid. So first of all, again, not having a plan. Make sure you have a structure and a set routine to follow. Otherwise, then you're just going to be guessing. So then next up is using the high-low strategy. So what I would encourage you to do is to make your hard days harder and your light days lighter. So for me personally, my hard days were Tuesday's leg session. Oh my God, that was like 2 hours long. It was 90 minutes weights, 30 minutes cardio. That was tough. So that was a hard day. Sunday's long run is going to be tough. Basically, all the leg days are going to be my hard days. So Tuesday, somewhat Thursday, which was my tempo run. Friday was moderate, and then Sunday was tough. But like, make your hard days hard and your lighter days lighter. So for my upper body days, I did not do any legs at all. I just did a 2.5 kilometer warm up. Okay, I made a mistake before of like doing 5 kilometer, 6 kilometer runs on my upper body days, but then it just led to burnout fatigue. Okay, so you need to make the hard days hard and use a high-low strategy, where some days are really hard and some days are quite moderate, but you can't train every single day of the week at a high intensity. That's something I found out the hard way. Other mistakes to avoid are, so personally speaking, that I don't train fasted anymore, that I always train fed, and this just aids my performance, fuels my performance, as I already mentioned in the nutrition section. And then finally, how to actually put a weekly plan together. So this is just a suggested layout, assuming that your goal is that you want to build muscle or preserve muscle mass, you want to run your first half marathon, and you don't want to be skinny come the end of it. Okay, so essentially we're going to do it from back to front. So Sunday is going to be your long run. Okay, so that's going to be, to start out, what I would suggest, okay, if you're at a 5 kilometer rate at the moment, you're able to run 5K. Come the end of your first 30 days, you want to be up to 10K. Come the end of the second month, you want to be up to 16K, which means come the end of the third month, the 90-day mark, you should be running your first half marathon. So again, your goal is at the end of the first month, get up to 10, goal at the end of the second month, get up to 16, your goal at the end of the third month is you should be able to run the half marathon. So that's where your long run would essentially come in. So you might start out, if you're already at 5K, you can probably ramp that up to 7.5 or 8K quite easy. Go from 8K, even just 6K to start, so you go 6, 8, 8 and 10. Okay, month 2 you could go from 10, 12, 14, 16. Month 3 you could go 16, 18, 20 and then 21.1. Okay, just something like that. It's basically where you're ramping up the volume by no more than 10% per week. Okay, so your legs are now tired on Sunday, so then your Monday session, that's going to be upper body 1. So what I would do there is an upper body push and an upper body pull combined, just like would say chest, back, shoulders, arms, biceps, triceps, all the good stuff along with some core work. Day 2, so Tuesday, is legs and speed work, so that's what I'd recommend. So do your weightlifting first, and then do your speed work afterwards. The reason I did my speed work afterwards is because which was 4 by 1 kilometer repeats. So legs, that could be something like barbell back squats, rear foot elevated split squats, Copenhagen side planks for your adductors. It could be lateral lunges. It could be glute bridges, whatever it might be. Hamstring work as well. RDLs are really, really good. And then the reason I did speed work afterwards compared to separating them out is definitely better. But again, as I said, for my schedule, I just prefer to do it all in one. But the reason I did speed work afterwards is because with the marathon, you have to get used, or half marathon, get used to running compromised legs. Okay, so I did my run after a 90-minute leg session and my legs were tired. But again, what am I doing? I'm training my mind, training my body that, look, to keep going, to push on even when your legs are tired. Day number 3 then, Wednesday, that's a recovery run. So you might just do an easy 5K at, 1 minute slower than your normal kilometer split time. Okay, just an easy 5K there, just to keep the legs ticking over. Thursday then, so that's going to be your second upper body session along with a tempo run. So you could just do something like 60 minutes weights and then a tempo run, which could be 8 kilometers. And off the 8 kilometers, it could be something like 2 kilometer warm up, 2 kilometer moderate, 2 kilometer hard, 2 kilometer cool down. All right, then Friday we're doing our second leg session. So personally speaking, for me, my second leg session, because there's 2 days before my long run, was very, very low volume and just like more like speed work and more concentric work. So I was doing things like box jumps, I was doing things like deadlifts, maybe not to my max capacity or max degree, and just like more like mobility work, like Copenhagen side planks, calf raises and so on, which are not very, very taxing or fatiguing on the body. Then Saturday, so Saturday can be a rest day because you've got your long run on Sunday, and then that's how I would essentially lay out the week. If you want to do something every day, on Saturday you could do something very, very easy like arms and core, okay? That's not going to impact your run really the following day. If anything, will just give you a good pump, but it's not going to be a whole lot very, very fatiguing on the body. And will just be a nice way that if you want to get some extra volume in on some of the stubborn body parts that you might have missed out on during the week, you could also put aside that Saturday session for it. All right, but that is essentially how I went, and how you can too go from running a 5 kilometer to 21.1 kilometers, which is a half marathon, inside just 90 days. So that is all for this podcast. That is all for this YouTube video. If you did find the video helpful, please make sure you hit the subscribe or you hit the follow so you do not miss out on our weekly uploads. And then if you want more customized one-to-one coaching, whether it's coming up with your own half marathon plan, whether your goal is to improve your body composition, get a bit stronger, get a bit fitter, we do offer one-to-one coaching to busy working professionals by application only. So I'll post a link in my bio if you want to fill out your application form. Once you fill out your application form, essentially I'll be in touch. We can schedule a Zoom call, see if we're a good fit, and then we can take things from there. But that is all for this week's episode. I hope you found it helpful, and until the next one, peace out.